Hi, I'm Mark Villasana, owner of Northwest Insurance Agency and proud SMU alumni. Insurance rates right now are awful. You know it and I know it. But give me a call and let's take a look at your current policy and see if there's anywhere I can save you some money. My phone number is 214-352-5656, or you can email me at markv@nwagencies.com, or just give me a call to talk SMU athletics. Pony up.
This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody.
1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for joining us. We're presented by Northwest Insurance Agency. Mark Villasana, you heard him from the jump there. Give him a call today and have him look over your policy. And look, we've got to look at a lot of things on this podcast today as SMU is heading into Saturday with an opportunity to secure that 4 seed. If the Mustangs can have some things go their way on Saturday with North Carolina facing Duke and Wake Forest closing out their regular season, things will be in good shape for the Mustangs to get that double bye. We'll talk about that. But we did see one of the more magical games at Moody Coliseum this year. We haven't seen too much magic as SMU didn't get a signature home win in a sense this year, but they did get a comeback win to save the day on senior night against Syracuse Tuesday evening to close out the home regular season, at least we know for sure, for Andy Enfield's first season of SMU basketball. And this was a game that, man, if you watched it, you talk about frustrating and all the different things that went wrong for SMU, from three-point shooting to, man, can we talk about free throws? We talk about free throws. We talk about free throws. SMU missing a bunch of them, but they were able to get the win. Keon Ambrose Hilton tips in a Boopy Miller miss, just kind of a prayer, just completely under the basket, and he makes that one somehow with 3 seconds left. Syracuse misses its half-court shot, and SMU able to survive and set up that 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central Time matchup on Saturday at Florida State on the final home game for Leonard Hamilton, and then, of course, their own senior day there in Tallahassee, a big game where SMU can really cement itself as that 4th seed potentially with a win. They're 13-6 in the ACC overall, now 22-8 in Andy Enfield's first year at SMU. And man, to rally from down 12 with 9:54 to go, 63-51. It was the largest comeback of the season for SMU. They outscored the Orange 22-10 to tie the game at 73 with 129 to play. There are so many unsung heroes that got SMU to that point. Cario Oquendo got 6 points, was able to really make some tough baskets. I thought he got into the lane really well. He finished with 16 overall, had 6 during that stretch, and he just kind of muscled his way into some baskets. But Keon Ambrose Hilton, one of the holdovers from the Rob Lanier era, was able to get the final 4 points in the final minute for SMU, and that carried the day. And that was a really special thing for him. As Andy Enfield said after the game, he started celebrating, going to the bench, kind of forgot there for a second what he had to do, which was finish the basketball game, but broke the hearts of Syracuse. They're a team that really has not had a good season. The Orange are really upset with where things are headed, and it's kind of a mess up there in upstate New York on the basketball side of things. So, you know, that Fran Brown kind of carrying the torch for good things for Syracuse, because the basketball team didn't deliver this year. But, you know, SMU is really in a situation now where obviously they can get the double bye if UNC does lose to Duke. They've got to take care of business, though. Tough matchup with all the emotions for Florida State on Saturday. But I will say, man, Andy Enfield, just super confident after the game. And I don't know if this is kind of that final piece to the puzzle as far as this team's development. You've seen them certainly not battle like you would like in those comeback situations. I think this was maybe the second win when SMU was down at half. Could be wrong. So it was not a great situation overall for SMU to be where they were in this basketball game, but they were able to come out on top. And Andy Enfield, I think, really kind of saw a little bit of something in this team. And I know he's said that throughout the season, how veteran, how mature, how SMU was able to turn the page after the blowout loss to North Carolina on the road. And they were really playing well before Boopy Miller got hurt. And he returned on Tuesday night, gave SMU some quality minutes, certainly stirred the drink very well on a night where BJ Edwards was sick, really questionable to even play. And then Chuck Harris got cut. He's going to have some stitches, it sounds like, for whenever he suits up for that Saturday matchup at Florida State. So something to watch there for him. You had Samet Yigitolu who fouled out with I want to say, a minute and a half to go or so. And they have not gotten that true signature win. So don't think that I'm trying to, say, oh, it's all good for those who know on that line. But I'm not trying to say it is all good for SMU in terms of where they are as a program, because they're in year one. They're still building this thing, but they are now in a situation where if they do beat Florida State on Saturday, it's because they showed the grit against Syracuse to get it done and to stay in this picture for that double bye. And also that helps them stay barely alive in the NCAA tournament projections. This is a team that, as of right now, at least, their tournament dreams could really die on Saturday if they lose. But they're a team that continues to stay in that either very few have it in the first four out, most have it in the next four out, in that little range right there, where maybe you beat Florida State, you secure the double bye, you beat a team like UNC or a Wake Forest or something like that. You get a quality win finally over a team in the top half of the league. And if you piece together the right things on the road, maybe SMU finds a way to upset Duke in that semifinal game, which would, I don't know if it would put them in the tournament, but it would finally answer that question of, do you have a quad one win? I don't know. Obviously, if you beat Duke, you then have a chance to win an ACC championship, which is wild, all things considered. But, that is looking far ahead. That's a best case scenario for SMU. But, that's kind of what this team is at this point. They're a team that wasn't expected to do much this year. I think Andy Enfield said they were picked to finish 13th in the league, maybe 14th, maybe 15th. I don't remember. That was a lifetime ago before we found out how much grit this team has. And look, they haven't been able to piece together a quad one win. They haven't been able to find that signature win in moments that can overcome, even a bad loss. Like, you almost would have traded, a loss to a Syracuse if you could have just had one. If you could have just had a win over Louisville earlier this season, or a win over Mississippi State, or a win over Butler, even, those are things that you really wish, if you're SMU, you could have found and you could have made happen. But I don't know if it would have necessarily changed how they're viewed, but they are now in a position where they win on Saturday, and then that could very well set them up for that double bye. But a really cool senior night for SMU as they honored Keon Ambrose Hilton, Matt Cross, who's going to be missed, Tibet Gorner, Chuck Harris, Cario Oquendo, and Jackson Young. So a strong group there. If you think about it, 3 or 4 of those 5 scholarship guys are really, key players in a sense for SMU. Especially the way Cario Oquendo's come on, and Chuck Harris has been really steady. He's developed overall. Matt Cross has been complete X factor. He's got to be on his game for this team to be good. And Keon Ambrose Hilton's playing a little bit better. Yohan Traore didn't play much at all against Syracuse on Tuesday. So I'm really interested to see how it goes, obviously, in the ACC tournament, but you got to get by Florida State. We'll be following that one, 3 p.m. Central on Saturday, as the Mustangs do take on the Seminoles in what will be an emotional day for Leonard Hamilton in his final regular season game in Tallahassee. That one being broadcast on ESPNU. So with that, guys, do want to remind you guys to go check out our friends at Minon, right up Preston Road in the heart of Plano. One of the, incredible restaurant experiences you can have. Family owned. Former SMU offensive lineman Nick Natur and his family, his dad Nick, own the restaurant. They've run it for years. You'll see them waiting on tables, checking on customers, and it is just the French vibes, especially if you sit at the bar. If you've ever been over to France, you can sit at some of those bars and restaurants, and they've got the champagne up there sitting, waiting and ready. It's on ice. It's just the classy little touches at Mignon. So they're open 7 days a week for dinner. They also serve brunch on Sunday, which is phenomenal, and just a great experience. Can't say enough about it. I told you guys last time we talked about them. Michelle and I spent our last Valentine's Day as a family of two there. So really good place, great spot. We'll definitely be kind of maybe looking to do like a special event there, like a really nice event, kind of ticket, maybe something private for our On the Pony Express listeners, subscribers, everybody to maybe, kind of do something special. We'll work with them on it. They've been great partners for us at On the Pony Express. So check out Mignon, again, right in the heart of Plano there. Great waterfront restaurant, and enjoy the French steakhouse vibes there. They do a great job. Mignon. All right. We go into now what is coming up on just such a critical time for SMU. And I wanted to touch on the current event for SMU sports first, which was basketball. Getting that win, obviously teeing up Saturday's game against Florida State. But now we are just weeks away. And it feels like a lifetime, because really we are 2.5 weeks away from the start of spring football on March 25th. Pro Day, March 24th. So still a ways away. Spring break, of course, happening later this month for SMU as well. We talked a little recruiting and how things are starting to pick up on that front. Mentioned Jake Johnson stopping by campus earlier this week, a big target for the Mustangs. But I can tell you this, these next few weeks are so vital for SMU's future. And we talked about the ACC settlement on the last podcast, and we went live. We hope you guys enjoyed that. The On the Pony Express podcast presented by Northwest Insurance Agency. Really, really enjoying going live. And we kind of reacted to that news, what that means, all of those things. But, I got a chance to really sit down with some people and talk with them, and also had some phone calls over the last couple of days and kind of diving into this settlement, because everybody wants to declare a winner and a loser for that matter. And they want to try to, stake their flag in the ground of what's going to happen or what this means. And I said on the last pod, I said, truthfully, you don't really know. But I can tell you one certain thing that everyone in SMU's leadership and incoming leadership believes. This is a great outcome for SMU. And here's why. Look, you can't always get everything you want in today's day and age of college realignment, TV contracts, all those things. But what SMU gets is it gets a 5-year runway. Let's call it maybe even 6, depending on how things exactly work out with TV contracts and the Big Ten and all those things. And for SMU to have that type of a runway to put together an athletic department and a university that deserves to be in whatever iteration of college athletics comes next, to be at the highest level, is a win. Because here's what SMU did in year 1 of the ACC. It's sitting tied 4th in basketball. We covered that. That's above expectations. And whether you want to talk about the league being down or not, that's another discussion. But if I would have told you before the season SMU would be top 4 in the ACC, you would have taken it in a heartbeat. Most of you would have, I assume, the reasonable ones. In football, you make the ACC championship game. You make the college football playoff. You see the success that volleyball has been having. You see the success that other sports have been having. There's some things that need to be fixed around the athletic department. There's some things that aren't going well for this university. Women's basketball, it's a huge year next year for Toy L. Wilson. The coaching carousel is starting to roll already around women's basketball. But, for SMU, you have a runway to the revenue sharing era of college athletics being a good launching pad for how you can develop great rosters across your athletics. You can develop a great football program into that next level. SMU is a very good football program right now. They are on the verge of being great. And that's the reality, whether you like it or not, whether you're an SMU fan, whether you're stumbled on this podcast because it was tagged for college football or something on your feed. SMU is on the verge of being a great football program. They won the AAC championship. They went to the ACC and they said, you know what? We're not going to be okay with just being a statistic of group of 5 teams that have jumped up into power conference ranks. We're going to be better than that. And they figured it out. They developed. They made it happen. They made some tough decisions. They made some tough changes in season to make it happen. And they deserve their flowers for that. They are on the verge of being great. And they're just opened a new end zone complex. You've got the facilities that are generally in place for a high-level athletic department. You have to kick that final door down and do it again. And that's the challenge. That's why they pay Rhett Lashley the big bucks. That's why he got an extension. That's why Scott Simons got an extension. That's why Kevin Jennings got a great NIL deal. That's why they went out in the transfer portal and invested in these players and in new players to retain and have the lowest number of transfers in the entire country right now. So say what you want. They retained everybody so far. And there's going to maybe be some attrition. We'll see. The scholarship limits, the scholarship numbers and roster limits are different. So I don't know how SMU wants to approach it. You have guys that could probably hit the portal, probably leave, probably go get a little bit of NIL somewhere else where they'd have a better situation to start or contribute. That might happen after the spring. Could very well happen. But it's not going to be because SMU doesn't have the money. They don't have the resources. They don't have this. They don't have that. Because everyone at SMU right now is pulling in the direction of putting this program into whatever Super League, whatever next iteration of college athletics has. That is what everybody is working toward for SMU. And so why do I bring up the next few weeks? Well, there's an athletic director search going on. And Rick Hart is moving on. And SMU, Jay Hartzell, David Miller, the search committee that is working on this, I think it's a good time to get that hire done in the next few weeks because time is money and time is SMU's existence as a high-level college athletics department. And the sooner they can get the next leader of the athletic department into the school, getting settled and beginning to start to work with Jay Hartzell on that future, it is critical. It is critical. And that involves raising money. That involves beginning those discussions because this is a 5-year job interview for SMU. And, we thought last year or so when SMU got into the ACC, we didn't really think this. We knew that there were going to eventually be more changes or another inflection point for the sport and the NCAA as we know it. We knew that was going to happen at some point. And we knew there was uncertainty. We knew everybody was talking about the Big Ten and the SEC creating their super conferences. But we didn't know what the future time, what the amount of time SMU would have to make all of that happen. We didn't know. We had no idea. And now with this settlement, SMU has an idea about that. They know what they have in terms of time. Barring something from Florida State and Clemson or another program saying, you know what, we got the settlement, but you know what? We're just going to just say, screw it. We're going anyway. On. Barring that happening and them paying up even more than what they'll eventually pay when it comes to a place to leave for, if they have that, now we know the general timeline that is in place. It's 2030. It's a 5-year job interview for SMU. It's a 5-year chance for them to go in and find ways to win, to impress, to build yourself into a athletic program that when you look at some of the programs that across the country you want to model yourself after, successful private schools, successful schools in general, you have to look at this 5-year window as one massive job interview. And for SMU, if they go out and they knock their AD hire out of the ballpark, it's going to, I don't want to say solidify SMU's place among colleges in like the next iteration. Like I do think SMU has to continue to do the things that they've done on the field and away from the field, make all of that happen because nothing is given, nothing is just handed to you as a program in the ACC, as a program in the Big 12. And that's where everybody's battling for that seat at the table. I mean, truthfully, I mean, I just don't see long term any Big Ten school or any SEC school getting their chair pulled out from under them from whatever the next table setup is. You know, whether it's we're gonna have 3 super conferences or 2 super conferences, and it's gonna be like AFC and the NFC and the NFL all battling for playoff spots and Super Bowl or whatever, or it's gonna be 3 big tables that are reimagined, which who knows? I have no idea what it looks like. I'm not gonna even sit here and try to figure that out because when the TV deals come up, and they come up in the Big 12 in 2030, 2031, Big 10, 2029, 2030, you know, those things are going to look very different. And it's going to be really interesting to see what that money looks like when those deals come up and what an ESPN, what a Fox, what all these television providers end up coming up with. Because look, like people just want ESPN to throw more money at it. ESPN's not a great place. You know, they ditched the MLB. They were contractually obligated to bring in Cal, SMU, and Stanford because the league wanted it to. And obviously, they gave their blessing, but they gave their blessing as well to keep the league at a number that couldn't then dissolve. And so that in the grand scheme of things, that can be kind of wish casting and trying to explain things that happen and all of those things. Because when 5 years comes, all that's gonna matter is how SMU performed in this job interview. It's not gonna matter that, you know, the ACC is a good bargain for ESPN. ESPN's gonna look at that deal, they're gonna look at how it stands with the SEC, they're gonna look at those things and say, "Hey, we have our amount of content that we need. Is this still a good deal for us?" Because if it is, then they're not going to then orchestrate a move for a Clemson or Florida State to another conference. That's all this is. I don't see independence being the way that major college football programs take to try to get a better number because guess what? Nobody's going to get a Notre Dame number to be independent going out. I mean, you could maybe argue Ohio State, you could maybe argue some of those other ones, but independence is for a one, you know, program. Even, you know, BYU, when they're built-in viewership, kinda gave that up, you know, and they're not the brand that Notre Dame is. And so these schools have to have places to go. And what that looks like, I don't know. I don't know what it's gonna look like because you have so many different options that are gonna be on the table by that point. Could be Super League, could be an expanded college football playoff that pays more money, that makes everyone happier in a sense. That helps them pay for rev share, that helps them set up this or set up that. Who knows? It could be a 30-team playoff. As silly as that could be, it could be. We could be done with conference championship games. Could be. You know, there's so many different ways that this can go that 5 years is a lifetime, but it's a lifetime in realignment. It is a 5-year sprint to the finish job interview for SMU. And so far, they're doing a great job. They're advancing to the next stage of interviews. You know, that's where they've teed themselves up very well. But it starts that next phase by nailing this next part of the interview, which is, in my opinion, in the next few weeks, by the calendar turning to April, your new AD should be installed at SMU. And that's an exciting time if you've been following the recent history of SMU to pay close attention because they've been making some major moves. Very interesting to see who they bring in. Will it be somebody that is a well-known name? Will it be somebody that is a power conference AD? There's been interest, but will it end up being that? That is always the question. You know, don't offer a coach the head coaching job unless you say yes. So even though it's been relatively mum on names, and it's been kind of quiet on who's truly involved, there's interest, there's conversations being held, and it'll be really interesting to see what route they go because they have the checkbook. They have a lot of things that make this job very desirable for athletic directors, both sitting power conference ones and obviously up and comers who are trying to chart their next move, big move to thrust them into the spotlight of being one of the next great college ADs. And there are options that SB has in terms of going those routes that could work out. But so far, recent history suggests they'll try to make a splash. So we'll be continuing to watch it. If you're an ontheponyexpress.com subscriber, just subscribe for your just $1 for your first week. That's what you do. You go on the site, you sign up. We've had actually a few people sign up this week. It's been a nice, little run of people joining the site, people joining the message board. And this evening, I don't know if I'll have it online by the time the podcast drops, but I am going to kind of reset things on AD search and share where things stand there. So be on the lookout for that at ontheponyexpress.com. Before we move into the final piece of the podcast, do want to remind you guys that we are also presented by our friends at My Perfect Franchise. Andy Ludicky is a franchise consultant. He can help you through franchise ownership and seeing if it's the right move for you. And if you do decide that franchise ownership is for you, and Andy helps broker you a deal to change your life, change your family's life, whether it be the corporate rat race or whether it be setting up a side hustle or whether it be trying to leave a legacy for your kids. If you set up a deal with Andy that he helps you put that together, his services are free, but he will donate money to SMU's NIL collective. So cool deal there. He's willing to support the programs that you're a fan of, and that really starts with SMU here on this podcast. So Andy's done this for a long time. He's a franchise consultant and a franchise owner. So give him a call today, 404-973-9901, or email him at Andy, A-N-D-Y, at myperfectfranchise.net. And of course, we're also presented by our friends at Northwest Insurance Agency. Appreciate Mark Villasana headlining our great group of sponsors there. So as we continue on with this podcast, teeing you guys up for what is a big weekend for SMU basketball, there continues to be movement on the recruiting side of things. And our own Steve Wiltfong had a great feature story. If you're an ontheponyexpress.com subscriber, you can read it on two Lone Star State brothers in the class of 2026, excited about their summer visit plans, and that is Chris Stewart and Carter Stewart. And they're pretty much, I would say, on the opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to recruiting and when it comes to how their recruiting process currently stands. And that is that Chris Stewart is the big name of the family in terms of he's been on the radar. He is committed to Texas, and he is going through his options right now. But then you have his brother Carter, who is one of the nation's really big risers. And I need to get his profile picture situated on his profile. But when you look at the length and the size that he has, 6'2", 175 out of Shadow Creek High School down there in the Houston area, he's somebody that is really blowing up on the recruiting trail. And meanwhile, Chris has been committed to Texas for a while now, but is exploring his options. And yes, we're an SMU podcast. Their official visit run begins this summer, May 2nd at SMU. And both have really liked what SMU is selling. And Chris was talking about how their spread offense gives receivers a chance to work. They're not afraid to air it out. And they're also building a great relationship with my family. And then Carter, who's a defensive back, said they run 3 to 4. They run a 3-4 with 5 DBs the whole game. So you can move from corner to nickel or safety. And that is what I will say Carter does really well, is he can move around a secondary and really be a chess piece for Scott Simons, Ricky Hunley to work on things there. So Chris Stewart is going to take an official visit to Texas the weekend of June 13th and Tennessee June 20th. Oklahoma is also in there. They'll check out Arizona State together June 6th, as well as Miami on May 30th. So Texas hasn't offered Carter yet. I kind of don't understand it. It just seems like he's blowing up this offseason. So will be one to watch there on the recruiting side of things as things do pick up more and more as SMU gets back from spring break in a couple weeks. They're going to host a bevy of prospects on campus over the coming weeks. They're going to get guys in there over the course of April into May, of course, with their big official visit weekend, May 2nd, kicking off the month. I did have another note for you guys. One of the top prospects in the state of Texas, a big riser for us at On3, and a guy that I'm really, really high on, Aljor Miles out of Kaufman, Texas. One of SMU's top targets in the entire 2026 recruiting class is planning to get over to SMU this spring for an unofficial visit before he does take his official visit to SMU May 2nd. So he kicks off things with Oklahoma State April 4th through the 6th, Stanford April 25th, then gets to SMU, and then he's got a little bit of a break. And I still think this is an opportunity for SMU to maybe really stake their claim to landing Aljor Miles. And if they can, then that is a massive pickup for this program. He is a big-bodied receiver who kind of reminds me of where our friend RJ Maryland stood coming out of high school. Just a bigger, stronger version of a wide receiver. Just somebody that maybe develops into a tight end at the next level, but does have the quickness, does have the versatility to be out there on the field and really tee up mismatches and do all of those things. So Aljor Miles is planning to get over to SMU in the spring. So that's another name to keep an eye on over there when it comes to recruiting, because look, recruiting for SMU, this is these next 2 months. If this next 3 weeks is one of the segments of the job interview for SMU when it comes to landing an AD, these next 3 months are really another step in the right direction, or another step in the direction of interviews for SMU when it comes to impressing on the football side of things. And it comes with recruiting, comes with basketball whenever the transfer portal gets going and how they need to build out the 2025-26 roster for Andy Enfield. Same goes for the women's basketball program over there and what they need to bring in to be successful and to put themselves in the right position. These are all opportunities that SMU has in front of itself to make positive impressions. And that's where this program really needs to hit on a lot of their top targets and players that they have coming in for these official visits. So big opportunity. Also want to remind you guys once again, Mark Villasana and Northwest Insurance Agency, to check them out today.
Dallas is always moving. So is life. That's why Northwest Insurance Agency keeps you covered. From home to auto and more, we make insurance simple and stress-free. Stay protected in the city you love. Get a quote today.
That's right. Talk with Mark. Met with him yesterday. Really excited about some things we have planned for you guys. We're going to do an event, and he's going to sponsor it and do some things like that. So really get him out in the community a little bit more. He's a proud SMU alum, man. It was a blast catching up with him and hearing about his plans. For all of you that are working with him, we've had some On the Pony Express subscribers. Just give him a call, give him an email, and talk with him about your insurance options. So, look, as we wrap up the podcast now, just want to say this spring for SMU, it's getting closer. It's getting to a point now where you're on that cusp. You're on that maybe breaking point if you really miss football right now, where you're like, I can't believe Rhett Lashley and his staff have decided to hold spring football starting at the last week of March, but it'll be here before we know it. And there was a really good, I was talking with a couple of people about this, just kind of, your make or breaks, your really kind of opportunities for guys to really break out and shine or put up or shut up. So I did want to kind of highlight a couple guys that are in that kind of that realm where they need to have their breakout spring. They need to show what they can do and do it at a high level, or else they're really setting themselves up to be you could argue maybe like not necessarily like recruited over, but the staff could say, you know what, maybe we do need to address this position. So a couple of players that I think are really in positions right now where they have to show what they can do, or, it's kind of going to be tough for them to maybe one day contribute at this program. But I look at a guy like Jamarian Carroll, was really high on him coming out of high school. He's a player that, I stumped for to be a 4-star prospect, comes out of Wichita Falls that, was really just a high level land. That was kind of the deal with him is he was just super, super impressive. But a very quiet young man, didn't hear too much out of him. Just heard that, he had committed and he shut it down and signed with SMU, but he's played in 7 games over 2 seasons. He has 1 catch for 7 yards. It's time. It's time. You have an opportunity with this wide receiver room to really make a statement. Romello Brinson and Jordan Hudson are back. Link Rhodes doesn't get here until the summer. You have some other freshmen that are coming up. This is the opportunity for the chance that, Jamarian Carroll's been waiting for. You see Jake Bailey, you see Roderick Daniels, you see Moochie Dixon and Keyshawn Smith head out, and they're gone. This is now your time to take it. And so he's always been a great young man, great to deal with. Again, I was very, very high on him coming out of high school, but he's one that I think now this spring, this is a massive one for him where he can really show what he can do. And I know it's in there. I've seen it. I went and watched him live in high school, and he took over games. It was really impressive as a high school prospect. So it's time for Jamarian Carroll to go on and step up into that wide receiver room and be somebody who really stakes claim to being a difference maker for this team. They need him at the wide receiver position. I also look at David Abiara, defensive end for SMU. This is probably one of the most interesting players that has come through SMU in quite some time. And here's why. Former 4-star prospect, well-regarded coming out of high school, was in SMU's backyard, and he ends up going to Texas and, didn't pan out over there. He was at a Mansfield Legacy. I remember going to see him in high school, and just oozes with insane potential. 2021 red shirts, doesn't see action at Texas, ends up transferring to SMU, plays in 2 games, 1 tackle in 22. Then in 23, he plays in 8 games, 5 tackles, tackle and a half for loss, and a half sack. Made the all-academic team for the AAC. And then in 2024, played in 5 games, had 2 tackles. And he really kind of got back into the mix in November, playing against Pitt, Boston College, Virginia this past season. This is a guy that is as athletic. I'll put him up in terms of athleticism, in terms of just about anybody along the defensive line. Like, he is a freak show. Harnessing that potential and turning it into consistent production, even if SMU got 15 snaps a game each game this season out of David Abiara, and they were the best snaps he's played in his career, and they were the highest quality that he could give, that would be huge for this program in terms of this defensive line. Because look, they've rebuilt it. They've brought in depth, competition, talent. They've done it at all 4 spots on this defense. They brought in a pass rusher in DJ Warner. They brought in a really versatile defensive end, maybe 3 tech in Trey Wilson. They brought in defensive tackles out the wazoo. Maybe they bring in more. But one guy that really has the chance to make a statement, his last year of college football, is David Abiara. He has the tools to get it done. And this is his chance to really step up and be that guy at SMU. So I'll highlight one more here. And I do think, at this stage, with Deuce Harmon back, with Marcellus Barnes being brought in, they like the young corners that they have in this program. AJ Davis, who had that scary hit to his neck and was, fine, returned to action later on in the season. But Played in 10 games. He started in one in 2024. This is his chance to take it to the next level. And I like AJ Davis's toughness, his kind of grit that he's shown coming in as a redshirt in 2022, playing in 4 games. Then in 23, played in 7, and then in 24, played in 10 with that one start. This is now his chance to maybe the doors open. You know, you're kind of in that mold now where you have 2 years left. This is your chance to really set the table for next year in particular, in 25, of course, but in 26 even, when Deuce Harmon is gone. You know, Jalen Davis-Robinson is back, but they also brought in a really talented player in Marcellus Barnes. So if you can build off of your 4 tackles, 1 PBU in 2024 and turn into a regular contributor, that really tees you up well for what could be your final season in 26. But if SMU can get a ton out of AJ Davis this spring, that'd be a big, big deal for SMU, because the cornerback position is one where, look, they brought in Marcellus Barnes. And again, highly touted guy. You know, Kentucky really felt good about him, but they get him done and get him to SMU. You bring in Lamadrick Spencer, who's a really talented player that they really like out of JUCO. They've got Javian Holiday. They've got Zay Gentry. They've got Speedy Nettles. They've got Alex Rogers coming up. If those guys are going to be good, you're going to have even more competition getting on the field. AJ Davis, this is his time. This is his moment to make it happen and be that dude for SMU. And look, I mean, he's got that toughness, that Isaiah Wacobia toughness in a sense, where Isaiah has realized his potential on the field. But in terms of Skyline Raiders being in the program, you know, Isaiah has taken it to the next level. AJ Davis has that in him. He's shown flashes, but this is his spring where he can really lay claim and say, there doesn't need to be any question whether there needs to be another defensive back brought in for SMU. We got this. I got this. Deuce Harmon, Jalen Davis-Robinson, Marcellus Barnes, AJ Davis. Those are your 4, and then you get contributions from a Speedy Nettles or a Zay Gentry or a Javian Holiday or somebody else kind of steps up. Man, you're in a great spot. But if you have those four older guys in this program, and guys that have played college football, if you're counting Marcellus Barnes in there, if you have those 4 being the guys and playing at a high level, it's a good situation for SMU. But they've got to get that consistency out of AJ Davis. I think it's a critical spring for him. All right, guys, I want to wrap up and go ahead and remind you guys about StatusJet, statusjet.com. Reach out to them today. Plan your trip to Charlotte. You know, use that flexibility of a private jet company to book your trip to Charlotte. They can get you a discount on a round trip flight when you mention On the Pony Express or code PonyUpACC. Again, David Henry, SMU supporters over there at StatusJet. They will help you out and give you the experience of a lifetime for that first ACC basketball tournament to Charlotte. Make sure you're on a StatusJet headed over there this coming week. It's crazy. The basketball season has flown by. I think basketball season flew by faster than football. And look, maybe it was because football was really, you know, at that fever pitch end of the season while basketball was starting. And so it feels like, you know, there was basically like a 3.5 month or not even 3 month basketball season in a way. But even those big non-conference games, the Butler, the Mississippi State, LSU, like, man, all that just seems like yesterday, and it has flown by. So make sure you reach out to our friends at StatusJet, and also check in with Brandon Thomas and the group at Thomas Auto Group, up 75 in McKinney. They will take care of you, whether it be repairs on your car, whether it be new pre-owned, whether it be a pre-owned or new car. Mention On the Pony Express for employee pricing today at Thomas Auto Group.
At Thomas Auto Group, the Thomas Promise includes the low price promise,
the pre-owned promise,
and the 72-hour exchange promise.
And finally, the 100% customer satisfaction promise. So shop Thomas Auto Group today, home of the Thomas Promise.
That's right. Of course, the On the Pony Express podcast also presented by our friend Mark Villasana at Northwest Insurance Agency. Email him info@nwagencies.com. Look, this has been a fun podcast. We appreciate you guys listening. Head over to ontheponyexpress.com. Subscribe for just $1 for your first week. Get all the intel. We're doing spring football previews now. Our entire staff working really hard to give you guys the best coverage of the Mustangs. It's no days off over there. jump on the message board, chat it up with us, and we'll see you next time on another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody.
Follow us on your socials on X at SMU on 3 and on Instagram at on3SMU.
And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.